Very good. Well, welcome to our first meeting in May of the West Perth Council. Before we call the meeting to order, I would ask that we have a moment of reflection. And I don't normally do this, but I noticed this evening the passing of Tom Heath. And while Tom wasn't necessarily a member of council, he was certainly a very active member of the community, being involved in several of the service clubs, and Lions Club being one of them. And he was also a former Citizen of the Year. So I think it would be very fitting if we remember the Heath family as we do the moment of reflection. Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the confirmation of the agenda as it was circulated on the weekend. Do we have a mover and seconder to confirm the agenda? Councillor Rose, and a seconder, Councillor Marshall. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Does anybody have a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda tonight? Okay, don't see any. If you do, you can always declare it at that time. All right, we have a number of items on the consent agenda, 10 to be exact. Is there anything there that anybody would like to have a little more clarification on it, or would like pulled and dealt with separately, or just needs a little bit more information on? Okay, I don't see any hands going up. So in that case, then a motion to accept the consent agenda would be in order. Councillor Harold and Councillor Murray. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. All right. The first item that we have is a quarter revision on the Tyndall municipal drain. So at this time, I would ask that we adjourn our council meeting at 7:04. For the purpose of a quarter revision. And we do need a mover and seconder for that, don't we, Labitza? So somebody want to move that? Councillor Murray and Councillor Bell. Thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. All right, Nicholas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Walter. Members of the quarter revision are myself, Mike Tam, Cheryl Matheson, Murray Rose, and Dean Trentowski.
Now, if I can just interject here for one quick minute, this is a suggestion that has come to me. So if you're not on the quarter revision, if you could just shut your video off so that the only people that are on the screen are the people that are on the quarter revision. It just makes it a little simpler for anybody that's watching at home.
All right.
Mike has a question, I think. Mike Tam?
I think Nicholas may have made my mistake there. I'm not on quarter revision.
The funny part is in the, oh, sorry, I'm looking at the Committee of Adjustment meeting. That's what I was looking at. That's why I named off all of the Committee of Adjustment members. My mistake.
Sorry, Nicholas, thanks.
That's all right. See you next time, Mike. So then quarter revision, I think, is Anna Marie, Dean, Cheryl, myself, and Sherry. All right. So I'll call the quarter revision to order for the Tyndall Municipal Drain Extension Branch C Improvements 2019 at 7:05. The purpose of the quarter revision under the Drainage Act for the Tyndall Municipal Drain Extension Branch C Improvements 2019 is to hear and make decisions on appeals to the engineer's report dated dated February 26th, 2001. So all members of the quarter revision are legally required to act fairly and impartially, whether they declare this publicly as an oath or not. Are there any members of the quarter revision that have any pecuniary interest? All right. I'll ask our deputy clerk if there were any comments, objections, anything received from any landowners?
No comments or objections were received. So I can say that notice of the meeting, along with a copy of Provisional Bylaw 21 2021 was given by mail on April 7th, 2021 to all landowners assessed. The letter advised that any owner may appeal the owner's assessment to the Court of Revision by a notice given to the Deputy Clerk by April 23rd, 2021. No correspondence or appeals were received prior to the Court of Revision. Members of the court may hear appeals on 3 grounds. Land or road has been assessed too high or too low. Land or road should have been assessed but has not, and due consideration has not been given to the use of land. So those are the 3 grounds for appeals, and I'll turn it back over to the chair of the court.
Thank you. All right. Then I'll take any late appeals from any landowners. Now would be the time. If you're a landowner on the Tyndall municipal drain and you wanted to appeal the schedule of assessment, now would be the time. All right. Any questions by any members of the Court of Revision? Any questions by any landowners? All right. Then we'll look for a resolution from the court that approves the schedule of assessment as outlined in the report prepared by RJ Burnside and Associates dated February 26th, 2021. A resolution to approve that, Cheryl?
Actually, can I, back you up a little bit?
Yep.
Do we need to confirm and adopt the minutes from the 2 previous
I can do that after this one, sure.
Okay. So I'll continue with the other.
Okay, great. Cheryl, thank you. Dean will second that. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. All right. Anna Marie?
Pardon?
Oh, I thought you were having a question. Sorry.
No.
Okay. All right. So then let's approve the minutes from the March 1st Court of Revision for the McMillan drain. Anna Marie and Cheryl, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we'll do the same thing for the minutes of the March 1st Court of Revision for the Hoff drain on the same date. Dean will move that one. Sherry will move that one. All those in favor? That's carried. Any other business? Thank you very much, Paul. We appreciate you being here. I'll look for a couple of people to adjourn our meeting. Anna Marie and Cheryl to adjourn the Court of Revision. All those in favor? It's adjourned. Back to you, Walter.
Okay, thanks, Nicholas. So we're back in open council again. So I would ask that you turn your videos back on again so that we can see who's all here. And the next item on the agenda is an application for a site plan agreement with the Anderson's Canada Limit, the elevator to the west of town. And David Gundrum is online, and I see him here now. So he's going to walk us through that along with another severance, I believe, that we're going to deal with later on. So David, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie. Mayor, members of council, good evening. I'm just going to quickly share a screen for the first application here, just to provide some additional illustration to what we'll be talking about. So can everyone see the image up on the screen here?
Yes.
So basically, the application before you tonight is an application for a site plan agreement for the grain elevator site that Mayor McKenzie made a reference to. This site, the property owner, Anderson's Canada Limited, is seeking a site plan agreement to move forward changes that have been requested by West Perth CBO and Fire Chief that are in regard to a designated fire route as a result of a recently approved severance application B29-20, which partitioned the subject property recently into 2 new parcels, illustrated by the image shown here. So the site will continue functioning historically as it always has, as a grain elevator business with other industrial, commercial, agricultural uses. However, it's now been partitioned into 2 separate ownership parcels, and as a result, it was identified that there was a need for a site plan agreement to capture changes to a designated fire route and fire route signage, which are shown by the red line. The red line on the image provided, this was the site plan application drawing, shows the general area of the new designated fire route. And as a result of the severance, the CBO and the fire chief brought to attention that this would be required. So this is that's really a summary of what's before you tonight. Planning staff have reviewed the application and are in support, and that the drawing before you contains the information that was required for a complete review, and that this drawing can serve as the basis for a future site plan agreement with the municipality of West Perth. So at this time, we are asking that West Perth Council approve the site plan application submitted by IBI Group on behalf of the Andersons Canada Limited, and that West Perth Council proceed with the adoption of the bylaw, which would authorize Mayor and Deputy Clerk to enter into a new site plan agreement and to have that agreement registered on title. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that members of council may have on this one, and that's really a summary of what this one's all about. So, thank you.
Wrong one. There, good. Thanks, David. Any questions for members of council? I have a question, David, and it is maybe part and parcel of this, and I never really thought of it until tonight, or I would have given you a heads up or a call. But the elevator, if we look at the aerial shot, and there's the elevator to the north of where the property line is. And one of the conditions of that was have access to that. And it is Anderson's that use that. So should that not be identified in there as to how you get access to that particular facility?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the mayor, it's a good question. The severance application had condition for reciprocal blanket easements, which have now been registered on title, that addressed pedestrian vehicle access across the new boundary, which is shown in the image that I'm share screening right now. So matters of access and for the purpose of just pure access, but also maintenance, that's all been captured in reciprocal easements that are now registered on title.
Okay.
So to answer your question, I hope that provides some clarity. So.
Yeah, like I'm talking about the facility at the very top of the map there.
To the north?
To the north, where the 4 silos are there, and then the long building, which is also used for storage. And when that was constructed, there was to be a right of way into it. But currently, and it makes sense, the way they get there is basically through Anderson's, over the scale and through Anderson's to that facility. And that's what I was asking. Should that not be considered somehow, whether it's in an easement, and maybe it is, or in the site plan?
Through the mayor, to answer your question, so the site plan only accounts for the two the interactions between the 2 parcels shown in red and yellow. Mm-hmm. My understanding is that there are blanket easements that that pertain to access both between the severed and retained parcels from the severance. But I believe that there are also easements that pertain to the area to the north, although I'm not 100% sure of that. But it's a good question, but it's not of direct concern to the site plan agreement that was applied for.
No, it's not. I realize it's not part of this. It's just that this was maybe an opportunity to ask that question.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, if you want to bring me back, yeah, share the screen again, or have people on here. Any other questions for that? Okay, the recommendation here is that we approve the site plan application, site plan or SPA, which is site plan 2021-01 submitted by IBI Group on behalf of Anderson's Canada Limited for property described as part of Lot 1, Concession 1 Hibbert. And that Council of West Perth proceed with the adoption of a bylaw authorizing the mayor and the deputy clerk to enter into a new site plan agreement and have it registered on title of the subject property at a future date. So do we have a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Vink and Deputy Mayor Ait. Any further discussion? Oh, question from Councillor Marshall. No question?
Sorry, my screen. No, it's just a little lagging.
Okay, yeah, you're
Was that from
actually
before?
you were froze up there for a
Or when I
minute.
was trying to offer.
So you don't have a question then, Jeff? Okay, all right.
No,
We did get a mover and seconder. So if there's no further questions, all those in favor? And opposed, if any? So that is carried. Good.
If I may, Mayor McKenzie, I was wondering if you could look at the agenda and if we could move to, just before we go to the next report, if we could take report 6.5, which is a report from the clerk's department on the Tyndall drain tender results. We've asked Paul McIntyre to stay on the call to assist us with that. And if it suits your purpose, if we could move that ahead and then we can finish up with Paul and get him off the call and then go back to David.
Okay. Yep. Nope. Sure. That's good. Okay. Tender results then for the Tyndall municipal drain.
All right, and I'm probably supposed to present that, so I've got to get it up. Just a moment, Mr. Mayor. Did you want to present it, Labitza? So Labitza has it ready. She can present it.
Hello, everybody. So the report speaks to the tender that we had closing on Wednesday, April 28th. We received 4 bids and we took 3 lowest ones into consideration and sent them to the engineer. So at the end, the lowest bidder ended up withdrawing their application because the dates submitted weren't correct. So they are proposing the second lowest, which is the Robinson. And if you have any questions, I can hopefully answer them.
Any questions for Labitza on that? Okay. And I will make a comment here. Obviously, we're having some slow internet connections here tonight because every once in a while people freeze up and it's not just Councillor Marshall that's having problems. I've noticed it with different ones. So
I'll just mention, Mayor McKenzie, too, that we did have, and Labitza pointed out, we did have an irregularity with the tender bids, and Paul McIntyre has stated he certainly reviewed the results, and if there are any questions, Paul's here to answer them, and if not, we can let Paul off the hook for the night.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And Labitza kind of indicated the irregularity that was there. There was one bid, and it was the low bid, not by a lot, but it was low bid. But the job wasn't going to be done until next year. That was the reason that they asked to have it pulled. Okay, if there's no further questions and everybody's okay with that, then the recommendation is that we award construction of the Tyndall Municipal Drain Extension, Branch C improvement to Robinson Farm Drainage in the amount of $148,352 plus HST. So do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Murray and Councillor Tam. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Thank you. So you're, Paul, unless you want to see how we operate here, but I think you have a pretty good idea.
All good, folks. Thanks for having me and good night.
Good. So on, Paul. Okay, back onto our agenda then. The next application is a consent to sever B07 21, and it's a Borson severance. So again, I'm going to turn it over to our planner, Dave Gundrum, to walk us through that one.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor McKenzie. Mayor, members of council, I'll just share my screen for this one, just to put some images up to illustrate what's going on here. So the following application for consent is an application to sever a surplus farm dwelling lot in the Fullerton ward of municipality of West Perth. So our report photo illustrates the proposed boundaries in yellow of the severed lot containing the surplus farm dwelling, and then the red indicates what would be the boundaries of the retained farm lot. I'll just switch over to the severance sketch that was provided by the applicants. So as a result of severance, there would be several structures which are proposed to be removed, including a shed shown here on what would be the westerly lot line of the severed lot, as well as an existing barn located to the south and actually intersected by what would be the rear lot line of the severed lot. So planning staff have reviewed the application for consent with respect to the provincial policy statement, as well as the County of Perth official plan policies that govern severance of surplus farm dwellings. We have found that the proposal does meet the 9 criteria of the County of Perth official plan policy, and that it is an application that we deem to be consistent with the provincial policy statement permissions that allow for severance of existing farm dwellings deemed surplus as a result of farm consolidation. Just for some additional information, the severed lot would have a frontage of approximately 69 meters or 228 feet along line 32, and would have an area of 0.65 hectares or 1.6 acres. While the retained lot would have a broken frontage along line 32 of about 336 meters or 1,103 feet, and would have an area of approximately just 100 acres or 40.5 hectares. As mentioned, we have reviewed this against the County of Perth official plan, as well as PPS found it to be consistent with both policy documents. There is no relief in terms of setbacks or frontage or lot area that would be expected with respect to local zoning. However, as typical with surplus farm dwelling lots, we have an included condition of consent requiring that a zoning bylaw amendment be passed to rezone both the severed and retained lots to control the permitted land uses moving forward as per the permissions in the County of Perth official plan. So to summarize, we are recommending that West Perth Council recommend the County of Perth Land Division Committee that this application for consent by Rob Borson be approved. And in response to our notice of application that was circulated back in April, we received 2 pieces of correspondence. The first was from Huron Perth Catholic District School Board, received on April 7th, replying that they had no concerns with regard to the application. And similarly, Hydro One Networks responded April 16th, expressing that they also had no concerns and no objection with the application. So that is some summary of what this application is about, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, any questions with regards to this particular severance? Councillor Vink.
David, would this be the second lot that is severed off of this farm? And if it is, do you know when that first lot was severed?
Through the mayor, Councillor Vink, we made some inquiries about that. We had a concern as to whether there was a prior severance when we were doing our pre-consultation with the applicant, and whether that had any impact on the actual severability of another lot, because we have ran into cases where prior to the existing policies, when these were allowed in the past, there may have been instruments put on title, like restrictive covenants. We didn't detect any, so that lot, which that cutaway that's shown to the southwest of where the new lot would be, through our investigation and some investigation by the applicant, they came to the conclusion that it's purely a lot of record. We couldn't tag it back to a particular prior severance in our questioning of the applicant and our own investigation. So
it's an old, well, it's still usable, I think, but it is a cemetery, isn't it? and I had to blow it up to see what it was, but it's, I believe, is it an evangelical cemetery? I think it is, but I think it's still in use. Deputy Mayor Height had a question.
Yeah, it is still in use. They cut the grass. They're still doing burials there. My question is, why the big shed staying with the house? And the doors to that shed face the south, so the people can't go in the shed. Why is that big shed staying with the house property and not the farm? Because they are retaining another shed on the property. If I looked right, the shed at the back is also staying. And this was brought to my attention today by a person at the store.
Through the mayor for Deputy Mayor Wright, we evaluated the application with respect to the 9 criteria of the County of Perth official plan that permits these. The applicants expressed a desire to include that shed to support the residential use. Given its size and proximity to the existing dwelling, we deemed it appropriate in this case. It does conform to, based on the proposed boundaries that the applicants put forth, it would conform with the setbacks from lot lines, which in this case would only have to be 1.5 meters, and they've shown it as a 3 meter side yard, 3 meter rear yard setback from that structure. Understanding that the doors may face, may perhaps in the wrong direction in this case, it's not to say that the structure can't otherwise be perhaps modified or still utilized in support of the residential use in this case.
And just to follow up, if I may, Dave, the people who are severing it realize that the next owner cannot run a business out of it, right?
Through the mayor, Deputy Mayor, that is correct. As per current official plan policy, the only a home-based occupational use is permitted. We currently don't have a policy that permits an occupational use on a surplus farm lot outside of the home itself. So whether the purchasers and or the current owners are totally aware of that, we haven't explicitly expressed that to them, but should they ask the question, that would be the answer, is that you could have a home-based occupation, but nothing beyond that currently.
Okay, other questions for David? Okay, I don't see any. So with your permission, I'll read the recommendation here, but there are 8 conditions, fairly standard conditions that go with this. And I won't read all the conditions. We've had this information all weekend long, and you've had ample opportunity to read it. So I'll just read the main part of the recommendation, and we'll go from there. So the recommendation is that we received a report entitled Application for Consent to Sever, B0721, by Rob Borson on behalf of Dayrow Farms Limited, affecting lands described as Lot 5, Concession 3, Fullerton Ward, 5185, line 32, prepared by the county planner for information, and that council recommends that the County of Perth Land Division Committee approve the application for consent to sever for lands described as Lot 5, Concession 3, Fullerton, 5185, line 32, subject to the following 8 conditions, and they're there for your perusal. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Murray and Councillor Rose. Any questions or concerns or comments? Okay, all those in favor of this recommendation? Opposed, if any? So that is carried. Very good. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Council.
Okay, the next item is a report from Rosemary, our library CAO. So, oh, there she is. Evening, and we'll just turn the floor over to you, Rosemary.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. The library board met on April 27th, and I believe you have the minutes with you. In that meeting, the board reviewed design options for a new library logo, and feedback has been submitted to Snyder's Graphics for further edits. In recognition of Truth and Reconciliation Commission reports from 2018, an Indigenous land acknowledgement was presented by the library board chair to be posted on the library's website and read before library meetings once it's completed. So the wording is not yet complete, but when it is, that will be appearing on the library's website as per instructions. And in fact, that is mandatory, required by the Ontario Library Service, that all public libraries in Ontario do have a territorial acknowledgement posted on their website. Board members at this meeting were also updated on Council's budget conversation from March the 24th and the associated capital projects that the library board members discussed back in the fall. So we're still waiting for a couple of quotes for two of the projects, but one of the projects will be moving ahead, and that is the relocation of the CEO office to give the library staff some workspace. Board members received updates on recent provincial and regional library meetings that various board members attended on behalf of West Perth. And this included the PCIN board meeting that took place on April 14th. Two of the library board members from West Perth sit on the PCIN board. PCIN actually has its own separate board. And in that meeting, the library CEOs were it was requested that they investigate a new insurance option for the delivery van, one insurance option with a lower deductible in the event of a second accident. And printing and photocopying are services that the library provides to the community. The board did acknowledge that this may be a financial burden for many members of our community. So the board members passed a motion to waive printing fees in specific situations, such as resumes and cover letters, government forms, and the COVID-19 vaccination request form that is required whenever you go to a vaccination site. And in fact, the library had already been supplying those consent forms free of charge. I'm happy to answer any questions about the meeting or its minutes.
Okay, any questions for Rosemary? Looks good, Rosemary. No questions. Okay, so a motion, no motion. Okay, all right. Then I guess we thank you, Rosemary. We will carry on. Very good.
Thank you very much.
Good. Okay, the next item up then is a report from our interim treasurer. And I see Terry is on here. There she is. Okay, Terry, I'll let you take over.
Hi, good evening, Mayor McKenzie, members of council. The first report that you're looking at is regarding the designated gas tax funds bylaw and agreement with our mobility bus, which we call it in our financial system. So this is just a small report that's just introducing the bylaw that you see later in your agenda. And the bylaw is to enter into the agreement as per the requirements with the gas tax to receive the funds. So we are receiving, according to the agreement, in 2021, we're receiving $31,307. So what we do with that is then we in turn transfer it over to the mobility bus. And we have an agreement with the mobility bus. It's a 3-year agreement. It started January 1st, 2019 and ends December 31st, 2021. And we pay them out of our municipal levy $12,000 a year, along with this grant that they receive, and then any funds. So it's kind of the background of this. We are to enter into this agreement, and then we have reporting requirements also that the people from the mobility bus give us. We're kind of the flow through, so they give us the information and we forward it on. We get the funds, we forward it out to them. So any questions on that?
Questions for Terry? Doesn't appear to be Terry, so
okay.
Carry on.
Yeah, you'll see the bylaw later in the agenda. Okay, so the next report is introducing and explaining the reasons for our Infrastructure Ontario borrowing bylaws. So there's going to be 2 bylaws coming later in the agenda. The first one is bylaw number, and I better make sure I get the right number here. 30, bylaw number 34. So that is to submit the application to Infrastructure Ontario for the Henry Street Bridge debenture in the amount of $1.9 million as per our budget, and the fire hall for $2,120,000 for a term of 20 years. And you'll also see that it's rescinding bylaw number 53/2020 because you had passed a bylaw last year, but then it never went any further than that. And the amounts were different. They're less than what your previous bylaw stated. So we had to adjust the application, and we had to prepare a new bylaw. And these bylaws are canned bylaws that we download from Infrastructure Ontario. So it has all the required wording in it and so on for that. So that's the first one. Did you have any questions on that one, on that first bylaw for Henry Street? And it's just coming from the budget. So once we do, they are reviewing. They've been reviewing because now they see that we have our financial statements done for 19 and the FIR. So they'll be reviewing the applications. They've already been like uploaded into their system, but tomorrow morning right away, if you do pass these bylaws, I have to send them off right away so they can carry on to the next process. So then what will happen next, they'll do a rate offer, and that will be the interest rate of the day on the 20-year debenture for us to agree to, and then we have to sign off papers and then enter into the debentures. Okay. So the next bylaw is what we're doing here is because we want to get ready in case we do build the new municipal building. We want to be prepared for that. So we've submitted an application for a construction bylaw. And so we've estimated the project to be 3.7 million, and then with some reserves and then the grant, the construction loan that we are requesting is $2,439,876. So what that construction loan is if council does proceed with this project, if they don't, the money just sits there, nothing happens with it, it just kind of dies. We would, if we do proceed with this project, we would use that funding or this loan to finance our payment certificates and so on. And the interest, the construction loan interest rate right now is 0.60%. So, and we're only getting 0.9 from our money in the bank. So it's pretty good. We're only paying 0.6 in interest on a construction loan. So we would draw on that. We would draw on that loan until we drew, if we did need to, draw it right down to zero. And then this bylaw also says that at that point, then we can also, instead of coming back and having a new bylaw, we can also then talk about turning that into long-term borrowing. If council chooses, you can either pay it off at the time if you have the funds available, or we can enter into some sort of long-term borrowing for all or a portion of that loan that we drew upon, that whatever the balance owing is at the time. So let me see. Yeah, so this bylaw, it's kind of an all-in-one bylaw that allows us to even go to that extent and do that. So when the project is substantially complete, if you do go through with it, then you can make those decisions later, depending on your financial situation at the time. So any questions on that one? We just want to be prepared. And I did make note in there also, I did make note in there also that we did speak with Infrastructure Ontario, and if we did delay this, we may have to, in another month or so, we might have to say, okay, they'll be wanting our 2020 information, and we're not ready with that yet. So that's why we would like to get this just at least on the table.
Okay, any questions for Terry on any of that? Okay, doesn't appear to be. Okay, so that's good. I think very good, Terry. Very good, excellent. All right, next up we have the operations, I believe. We've dealt with the Tyndall municipal drain. Which is later on, I guess. So yeah, operations report, and the first item is the connecting link. So Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
The
connecting link. No, the
Am I looking
evening,
at
Mayor
the-
and members of
Yeah,
council.
no, another report.
Oh,
There is no report there.
He's making sure you're paying attention,
Yeah,
Mike.
operations report for April and activity report. Health and safety, Cody and Adam completed our Common Core surface miner training, so they're now able to work in our pit. For operations, you can see our completed and ongoing projects and our upcoming projects listed out there. For our tenders and contracts, we got an early start. Line 53, we started paving and patting that road on April 27th. West Street, we completed that pulverization and paving on April 19th. We also completed Clayton Street top coat on April 19th. And last week, late in the week, our Russell came back and started repairing some of the lawn deficiencies and other things on Toronto Street West. For tender results, you'll see attached a recommendation report for Nelson Street reconstruction tender, which was going to be phase 3. We closed tenders on April 19th at 11 o'clock. Dennis Elliott from BM Ross and myself opened and attended those tender openings. We had 5 bid submissions. All the documentation and arithmetic was checked out. We did find one error on Omega's bid, however, it had no impact on the final bidder's position. The municipality is familiar with the low bidder, and we found their work satisfactory in the past, as they just completed Toronto Street West for us. You can see the financial implications there between the budgeted contract forecast and the actual submitted tender prices. And you can see we're under that portion of the budget for the contract portion. So my recommendation is to accept this tender and award it to R. Russell Construction in the amount of $1,785,321.47, which is including HST. And I have one also notification for council. I'm not sure if you want to do it after the motion, Walter, or now, but in the past on our construction projects, reconstruction projects, 3 years down the road, you know that the residents have been having issues with their sod. And that's because of the grubs, because they're not properly aerating them or putting chemicals on them. So in this tender, we also submitted or asked for a price for both sod and seed. And if you and council decide to choose and go with the seed option, you'll have a savings of $10,068.30. But that'll have no impact on the final price.
yeah, no, that's good to know, Mike. I think of a lot of ratepayers are the belief that some of these grubs are coming in on the sod, and I'm not one to say whether it is or not, but it's quite possible because obviously there was no problems before the construction, and it seems to happen after the construction, and sometimes it's maybe just a bad year too. Hard to say. Anyways, we do have the recommendation there. Mike read it off, and that we award the contract Nelson Street Phase 3 construction to R. Russell Construction in the amount of $1,785,321.47. So we need a mover and seconder for that motion. Councillor Tronkowski and Councillor Marshall. Any discussion or questions for Mike on that? Councillor Rose.
I have a couple of questions, and it's pertaining to the paving on Clayton Street. Is it okay if I ask that question now?
Well, how about we vote on this, Murray,
Okay,
and then you can ask that question. How's that?
Okay.
All right, because it's really 2 separate items. So any questions with regards to this accepting the tender for Nelson Street? Okay, if there's no questions on that, we'll take the vote then. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Yeah, we can do that question right now if you want, Murray, and then I won't forget about it later on. So you can ask about that one, and then we'll go on with the rest of Mike's report.
Okay, thank you. Mike, I had, it's kind of a two-phase question. First, when the sidewalk was replaced, I've had some people ask, is the town going to put seed or something down where it's just soil now, or is that up to the residents to do that?
We'll replace and reseed it.
Okay.
Probably didn't take last year because it was so late in the year, but we'll put some seed down there. That's no problem. We can do that. Thank
you. And the next part of the question I've been asked is when the sidewalk went across the driveways, is there any rebate being that the driveway was already put in and the town didn't have to do that, or the developer, whichever way you look at it? Is there a rebate coming to the residents that the sidewalk went across their driveway?
No, there will be no rebate. That was a part of the condition for the builder to put in and then to install and to go through the proper building and driveway permit process.
Okay, thank you.
Do we invoice the residents there for having a sidewalk go across the front of their property?
Better not. It was supposed to be on the other side of the road when we built here. So I don't think we should talk about that.
Yeah. Okay, moving on then, Mike.
And my last part is the only tender to be let. I need authorization from council to proceed to authorize tendering for the Ontario Road resurfacing, which is for the connecting link and intake number 6 grant, which we received last month or a couple of months ago now.
Right. Okay. Just so you know, I had that one at the top of my agenda for some reason.
That's what screwed me up.
Sorry. So yeah, the motion is that we let tenders for the connecting link yes, that's it. So we have a mover and seconder for that, Councillor Trinkowski, and a seconder is Councillor Bell. Any further discussion on that? Mike, any ideas? Of course, it's pretty hard to tell until you get the tenders in, but we're looking at doing this project this fall yet, aren't we?
Yes, that was part of our grant application. So we're hoping to push out the tender this week so we get at least some bidders on it.
Right, good. Okay, question from Councillor Tam.
Just on that, Mike, I never asked this on the other project, but I noticed that Lavis didn't bid. Are they not in that game anymore? Are they already full, or?
They're 100% full for this season for paving.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we did get a mover and seconder. We haven't voted on that, I don't think, have we, Labitza? No votes. Okay, so all those in favor of we're letting tenders out? Okay, opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions for Mike? All right, very good, Mike. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Good evening.
Okay, next on the agenda then is the clerk's, we did that one. That was the Tyndall grain, sorry. Correspondence, item number 7.1, the Western Ontario invitation for the Municipal Code of Conduct consultation. And Labitza, are you going to talk about this?
I can.
Or Jeff, okay?
I can. Thank you very much, Mayor McKenzie. I just, we put the correspondence on from the Minister of Municipal Affairs, Stephen Clark, asking that council identify a representative to participate in this consultation. We have a resolution prepared with a blank space in it. If you can just identify which councillor you would like to participate, and we will register them so that they can participate in the session for, I believe the session is June 8th. Thank you.
Okay, so we need a name to put in there, either a volunteer or a nomination of a name to go in there. Sherry? Sherry is volunteering to do it. Anybody else?
Unless somebody else really wants it, they can.
I could think of a few people that probably want to do it, but they're not on council. Okay, do you want to do that by motion, Labitza? Or, okay, so we should have that by motion that Sherry go onto that, participate in that municipal code of conduct. Oh, you got one here? I could have looked for that. It's probably in there. Miss Bally West Perth, represented by Councillor Bell at the June 8th Town Hall session for Western Ontario municipalities on the municipal code of conduct. Mover and a seconder for that, Councillor Murray, thank you. And we need a seconder, Councillor Rose. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Very good. Next item of correspondence, and Jeff, do you have information on this one, or Labitza?
I can introduce it. It was correspondence that was received through our general mailbox and asked that we share it on the council agenda. And the request is a request about if we would pave William Street between Napier and Nelson. And it's just correspondence we put on the agenda for council's consideration.
So normally when we would get a request like that, we would refer it to our operations manager, I would assume, for comment or a report of some type about where it is in our long range plan. Mike's on there right now. I don't know whether you want to comment on it or not, Mike, or we can refer it to you and you can come back with a report. Obviously it's not going to happen this year, but
No. So currently it's in gravel. There's actually currently no residential houses on this small road section. It's in gravel. This is the first year that it ever went soft on us, but a lot of the roads did just because of the early spring thaw. So when we went from -6 to +20 for those couple of days, it went soft on us. There's no plans to reconstruct it or pave it until the proper time comes when there is servicing and everything else that needs to be done along that road section. There's other streets that are currently in gravel with residential lots on it that will take precedence over this location.
okay. Any other comments or queries on that? Councillor Jankowski?
Through you, your worship. Mike, is there any thought or possibility of investigating to see what, if it's wet, then it's a drainage issue. So is there anything that could be investigated to see what could be done to alleviate or help improve the drainage that would help improve the road surface condition, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, there is a drain outlet right beside this road. It was working and functioning. I think it was just because of the weather conditions, but we'll keep an eye on it and potentially look at maybe putting some drainage, an additional sub-drain along the side of it next year, but nothing for this year.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's what I had in mind, just some minor improvements or something that might be all it takes to improve, make it usable during those spring thaw seasons.
And I believe you indicated, Mike, like this road has not given us problem in the past, has it?
No.
So obviously it was something that spurred this to happen. So I think the least we can do is probably as Dean said, maybe whether it's a drainage issue or what, but we should look into it so that it doesn't occur again, down the road, and try and rectify it if we can. Okay, moving on then, brings us to council reports. And the first item, or the first one, is the Heritage and Culture Committee, and I believe that is Councillor Marshall's committee.
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie. It's just, it was a pretty quick meeting. went over some of the virtual concerts, the inventory of heritage or potential heritage buildings. Talked a little about the administration office and the clock tower. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer or try to answer them anyways.
Any questions for Jeff? Okay, doesn't appear to be, so good. Thank you, Jeff. Lamitza, do we not need a motion to accept all reports from councils and staff? No? Okay, so we're going to make one up, are we? I like that. It's not on the agenda, but normally we do have a motion that we accept all reports from council and staff and not anything not specifically dealt with, right? So if we have a mover and seconder for that, that would be great. Councillor Bell, and we need a seconder. Councillor Murray, thank you. All those in favor? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. All right, so we do have 3 bylaws here to deal with. Bylaw number 34 is a bylaw to approve a submission of an application for infrastructure for Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation for long-term financing. And we authorize the municipality to enter in a rate offer agreement pursuant to the municipality will issue debentures to OILC. The second one is a bylaw 35 to authorize certain new capital works of the corporation, to authorize submission of an application to the Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation for financing of such capital works, to authorize temporary boring to meet expenditures in connection with such capital works, and to authorize long-term borrowing for such capital works through the issue of debentures to OILC. And finally, the third bylaw, bylaw 36, is to authorize an agreement between Her Majesty the Queen in right of Canada, hereby represented by the Minister of Transportation for the province of Ontario and the Corporation of the Municipality of West Perth for funding under the dedicated gas tax funds for public transportation. And I believe Terry had gone over all of those in her report. So the recommendation is that the Council of Municipality of West Perth gives first, second, and third and final reading to bylaw 34, 35, and 36 this 3rd day of May. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Ait and Councillor Matheson. Any discussion or questions before we take the vote on that? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? And opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. All right, announcements are there. Our next council meeting is May the 17th. Any notices of motion? Okay, any other business? Deputy Mayor Wright.
Yes, I have a question about the McKilla pit. Noticed got a call on the weekend that someone had been working in there, gravelled the driveway, and there was equipment in there. And I was just wondering if we could get or possibly get an update on what is going on.
Jeff, I'll let you follow through with that.
Fair enough. Through your Mayor McKenzie, and thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor Wright. I presented on the McKilla pit in open session on June 1st, 2020. It's a property that West Perth owns that's located in now Huron East. It was originally purchased by Logan Township and eventually came into the ownership of Municipality of West Perth through amalgamation. The options we looked at last year were to do whether we do more investigation on the property. Council directed me to look into the possibility of doing boreholes for the property so that we could determine whether or not we should get a report together and sell the property with those boreholes, or whether we should pursue perhaps extraction through some kind of a royalty agreement with a partner. So where we're at, we made a few attempts to get out there and do the test pits to confirm whether or not it was worth doing boreholes. I had an opportunity to get some advice through Lavis. Actually, last week we were able to connect and walk the property with one of their aggregate experts who identified a few really choice locations to dig test pits and determine whether or not it's worth actually proceeding to geotechnical analysis with boreholes. We had them, we met there on Thursday afternoon, I think it was, or Wednesday afternoon. They were moving equipment and they were going right by, so they stopped. We got them a key, they got in, they dug the test pits on Friday and demobilized and are back out again. So we have the test pits. The quick conversation on the preliminary results of the test pits is there is a nice bit of gravel in there. There are a couple of clay seams that are we would want to know more about. It would be nice if those clay seams weren't there, but on the other hand, if the gravel that's between the clay seams is good, it may very well be economical to go. And then of course there's a couple of options which I'll be bringing back to council in a report, and I anticipate this report coming, it can, now that I have the test pits done, it can be in the next few weeks. So at the next council meeting or the one after, I would like to look at just estimate approximately how much gravel there might be in there and what the cost of doing boreholes would be. Not unlike when we sold our shops, I think we benefited greatly, and I think everyone that participated in the process was more satisfied when we had a lot of the unknowns addressed up front. So I would recommend to council that we do document test pit information and issue that report and include it as part of the background information we issue if we wish to sell the property, or that we use that as the basis for negotiation if we wish to enter into a royalty agreement with a partner to extract. I'll be coming back to council with those recommendations, but I would just say to you in general terms, as far as if you want to think about the economics of this pit, the licensed area is about 36,556 square meters. Conservatively, if you had 5 meters of gravel and I think looking, the person I was talking to thought you should use 7, but even if we use 5 meters of gravel to calculate that, you end up with 182,750 cubic meters of gravel. You multiply that by 2.2 to convert the cubic meters to tons, and you're around 400,000 tons of gravel. And that's something that I'd like to get a tighter number on that, but that gives you a sense of what we're looking at here. Royalty agreements would be somewhere between $2 and $3 per ton. And you're looking at, $800,000 to $1.2 million in possible revenue. Of course, the thing about a royalty agreement is that you're limited by the extraction that's required of the pit. And this pit, I believe, has a 20,000 ton per year limit on it. So it would take a very long time to finish the pit out and use up the resource. We could explore options of whether we want to improve the license or whether it would be uneconomical to open up that license. And we really need to explore other factors of the current license. So there are some options that are now opening up in front of us, and I appreciate Deputy Mayor Eit's desire to get an answer to this one. We now have some information that we can put together into a report for council with some options.
So really, I think all that was going on is we were just doing our due diligence, and it's lagged on. I think for a couple of years, we've talked about doing some exploratory work in there, and it's just finally happening. So I think we wait until Jeff comes back with a bit more further information, and then we can have a discussion at that time as to where you want to go. Any other questions for Jeff on that? Councillor Jankowski?
No, Your Worship, I have a question, but on a different topic, so I'll wait.
All right. Well, if there's no further questions for Jeff, we're still in other business, so we can take your question now, Dean.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. to Jeff Brick, the status on the environmental coordinator, the greenhouse gas emission portfolio. Could we get an update on that at our next meeting, please?
I can give you an update now, Councillor Trenkowski, because I just got one on Friday. We went through, I assisted North Perth with doing a round of interviews and identified 2 top candidates for that position. North Perth was doing the recruiting. It's a staff person of theirs. They offered positions and actually ended up not getting either position secured because of other opportunities that those candidates had available to them. So they're going back and doing more interviewing this week. I'm not going to help them with the interviewing this week. So they've gone back into the resume pile and are going to pursue another round of interviews and then consider their options from there. And as I said, I'm not able to help them this week as we've got our own interviews to do.
Okay. Any other questions at this time under other business?
Did you want an update? Did you want an update, Mayor McKenzie, on the filling of the reservoir or not filling of the reservoir?
Yeah, that was a discussion just before the meeting started. So yeah, if you want to update it, that'd be great.
Yeah, I just, I'm happy to provide this update, and I was going to try to get some more detailed information today, but the day got away on me. But I can advise that we've been working with the Conservation Authority. We made a commitment about 3 weeks ago now that we would move into the regular operating cycle for the reservoir and and fill the reservoir. And while we were getting the reservoir filled, or after we got it filled, we would turn our attention to a monitoring regime to monitor dissolved oxygen and temperature to just watch the reservoir water quality. So we've executed the monitoring regime, but the filling of the reservoir requires some cooperation from Mother Nature. It's, as many of you will know, and especially those of you that work on the land, it's been a particularly dry summer. We need about 8 millimeters of runoff in order to fill the reservoir. And that would mean that in these conditions, with the soil being as dry as it is, we probably need at least an inch of rain to get 8 millimeters of runoff. So we've been trying our best to get it filled, and then we catch a little runoff, and then we lose it again because we can't close the gates off and completely stop the flow. So it really requires the cooperation of Mother Nature. I would mention that this is, in my experience with water management from the past, we ran into this one time in the 25 years that I was involved in the water management business, and it was about 2007, and that was the only year that there was a difficult time getting Wildwood, Pittock, and a number of the small reservoirs filled. So this is kind of a twice in 30-year kind of occurrence where you get this dry of spring, but it is what it is. We still intend to proceed to fill as soon as we get the right conditions, and then we've established the monitoring, and we were able to hook in and get the equipment in place, and I think it's mostly installed. So we'll be ready to go as soon as we can fill.
And you could ask any farmer and they'll always tell you that you're going to get so much rain in a year and it's going to come sooner or later. So we just have to wait it out.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions at this time under other business? We've had a few good updates there. All right. Okay, at this time, I'll have a motion then that we go into closed session at 8:10. And we're dealing with a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, or financial information that belongs to the municipality or a local board and has monetary value or potential monetary value, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the corporation, and finally, advice that is subject to the solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for all that purpose. So a mover and seconder for that would be appreciated. Councillor Murray and Councillor Harold, all those in favor? Okay, we out of closed session now, and there's nothing to report from rising out of closed session. So we're back into our open council meeting, and we only have 2 items, I believe, to deal with. The first one is confirmatory bylaw number 37, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of the municipality of West Perth. Have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Murray and Councillor Harold. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. So that's first, second, and third reading on that one. And finally, a motion to adjourn at 8:49. Councillor Tunkowski and Councillor Rose. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much.